Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, my name is Chelsea Rikard, and I'm one of the members and one of the owners here at a business law firm. And today I'm really going to be talking about how we as business lawyers can help a business or serve a business at all stages of the business's life, from the startup, the opening of it, all the way through a possible sale or even a closure of the business. So there's a lot of different things that can go on with a business in every stage of its growth and of its life. And so there's tons of things that we can do as business lawyers, not only just to serve that business, but serve the entrepreneurs who own the business as well. So, of course, starting at the beginning, when you think of a business starting, we meet with a lot of people who come in and say, look, I'm interested in starting a business, but I just don't know what type of business structure I want to adopt. And so there are lots of different types of structures that the law provides, specifically here in South Carolina. For example, we have LLCs, which are very common. Most people have heard of a limited liability company. We also have two types of corporations. We have a statutory closed corporation and a C corporation. One type of corporation that a lot of people also refer to is an S corp. But an S corp is not an actual type of corporation. It's simply just a tax election. And so there's kind of a lot of miscommunication or just misinformation, I guess, about an S corp. And so we really kind of take a deep dive in those initial meetings with those folks to go over, okay, what are the types of structures that are available to you? And then based on, your goals for your business, how many people are going to be the owners of the business, what's your potential revenue? We take a look at all these types of things to help them figure out which is the best structure that makes the most sense for them and meets their goals. And then we can help them get that started. Once you get started and your business is growing, then we can also serve a growing business, whether it's kind of still in its infancy or a well-established business that's been around for decades. So there's lots of things that we do with established businesses. Is what I would say is mostly we do some general counseling for them. So we can do contract drafting, contract review. A lot of folks need to have a contract, whether they're selling goods or providing a service to customers. And they either don't have a contract in place already, and so they need one prepared, or they need to have one reviewed that maybe them. So a lot of contracts I have worked on relate to the construction industry, and I represent folks, or I take a look at the contract that's been presented to them by an owner or maybe a general contractor, and we look at specifically the terms in that contract, and I say, okay, this is kind of something that gives me pause for concern, or hey, I'm fine with these types of terms, and we go over it together. So a lot of folks don't have contracts in place, so we help them prepare them. And what we do here at a business law firm is we actually will prepare a contract that you can use over and over and over again and present to multiple customers. So it's kind of like a template. Other types of contracts that we deal with, lease agreements. If you're leasing a building or you are the landlord of a building, we can take a look at that lease agreement or draft a lease agreement for you. Independent contract agreements. A lot of people, a lot of businesses hire independent contractors, 1099s, and they don't always have an agreement, an actual written contract in place. And that can be incredibly important, particularly if the business ever finds themselves in a position where they're actually having to prove that that person is indeed an independent contractor. Because unbeknownst to a lot of business owners, just issuing someone a 1099 may not be enough to establish that that person is actually not an employee. So the IRS, the Workers' Comp Commission, our courts, Department of Labor, they all look to a lot of different factors and a lot of different things and do kind of a fact-intensive analysis of that relationship between the company and the independent contractor to determine how much control is that business exercising over this individual or this other business to determine, are they truly a independent contractor? And so having an agreement in place, a written agreement in place between the business and that individual, really helps to bolster that relationship, to prove to the Department of Labor or IRS or workers' comp or courts that yes, they are indeed an independent contractor. So those can be really, really vital. I would say contract drafting and review makes up a large portion of what we do here, but also asset protection. And what I mean by that is we always look to protect the assets that are located inside of a business, but also we want to protect the assets of the business owners, so the entrepreneurs. So we set up a system or a plan, really, to make sure that all of the largest assets that are owned by a business are protected, and also the assets that are owned by the owners, their homes, their cars, maybe their boats, cash, all these sorts of things are being protected in the event that there's a lawsuit or anything of that nature. You know, a lot of other industries that we partner with as lawyers are financial planners, advisors, CPAs, all that sort of thing. And those professionals are also working with business owners and entrepreneurs to protect their wealth or even build their wealth. But what we do as lawyers is we then make sure that that wealth that these advisors and such have worked so hard to build is now protected. And we will also meet with those entrepreneurs to say, okay, here's what the law says about when an owner's personal assets can be brought into a lawsuit or can be liquidated by an attorney in order to pay off a judgment. And so we kind of go over all that information with them and we say, okay, this is what has to be proven in order to bring in an owner's individual assets. And this is what you need to make sure that you're doing as a business owner to make sure that, you know, this asset protection plan that we have put in place will actually hold up, right? Because we need to make sure that first we put in a plan, and then we also want to make sure that the business owner is educated enough to make sure that they're following that plan, or that they are, you know, keeping books and records and their paperwork in place to make sure that that plan will be upheld in the event of a court review or something like that. So some other things that business lawyers do in working with established businesses is, of course, litigation. You never want to find yourself in litigation. I think the only people that enjoy litigation are the lawyers. But what we do here and what the design of what business lawyers try to do is put everything in place, put all the legal infrastructure in place to make sure that you don't have to go to litigation. We do our best to make sure that you have contracts in place, documents in place, asset protection plans in place to protect you from ever needing to go to litigation. But in the event that you do go to litigation, we want to make sure that those contracts or those documents that you have prepared are strong enough to give you, of course, the strongest case possible, right? So it's a lot of work that we do on the front end to try to prevent you from going to litigation. But of course, in the event that you find yourself in litigation, business lawyers will help you get through that process and, you know, make it somewhat as easy as possible, understanding that, you know, litigation is not really fun and it can be difficult, of course. So some other things that we also do, protecting intellectual property, trademarks, copyrights, all that sort of thing, that can be particularly valuable to businesses and business owners. You know, their slogans, their colors, their catchphrases, their logo, all those sorts of things are intellectual property, and those things can be protected by the law with filing of a trademark, whether it be federal or state. So business lawyers can help with that process as well. And then one unique thing that we also do here at our firm is creating incident response plans for cybersecurity. You know, almost every single business owner nowadays is being told it's not if you're hacked, but when you're hacked, you know? So that's a reality that a lot of us are having to deal with these days, including us at law firms and lawyers. And having an incident response plan in place and even testing that plan is something that lawyers can help you prepare. We have a lawyer here that does cybersecurity law, and she drafts a lot of these plans for business owners and just educates them on the policies and the procedures, and of course what the law says about how you do respond to a potential hack or something like, or a breach, and what does the law say you need to do in that event. And she kind of helps them, walks them through that process and things of that nature. Kind of moving on towards the final stages, if you will, of a business, or maybe just final stages of business ownership. What would characterize a finality of a business would be if a business owner maybe is ready to sell, whether it be sell just a portion of a business or just their stocks in a business, or sell the business in its entirety. And another example would be if they're ready to close. So in that kind of end stage of a business's life, some of the other things is preparing the business to be sold. So we work with other professionals to help maybe reach a valuation of what the membership interest is, or what the stocks or shares are, so that when it's ready to be sold, you know exactly what you have. We have solid information in place to determine what the purchase price should be. But then business lawyers can help draft the purchase and sale agreements, draft everything that needs to go in place, all the documents that need to go in place to effectuate the sale, so that the purchasers feel like, they are fully aware and fully informed of what it is they're buying. And then of course that the sellers can make sure that they've effectively transferred everything to the buyers correctly. And that may include assets, that may include debts, obligations, liabilities, all the above. It really just depends on what the parties have agreed to. So having the appropriate documents in place, if and when you decide to sell a portion or all of your business, can be incredibly, incredibly vital. Succession plans. So, and a succession plan is what happens to your business in the event of disability or even death of the business owners. That can be incredibly important, because if the plan, especially family-owned businesses, you may think about, if the plan is that you want to pass your business on to another family member, a child, some sort of other heir, having a succession plan in place to make that transition smooth can be incredibly peaceful, meaning it gives you a lot of peace of mind. And it really helps those folks who are going to be taking over to make sure that, they know what's coming, and you have those plans, those documents in place to make that transition really smooth. And then there are also, in talking about the kind of final stages of a business, winding up. So if you want to dissolve your business, you're ready to just kind of be done, you want to close, and you want to wind up that business. That's a legal term that we use, but there are very, very specific steps that you have to take per the law to appropriately wind up or wind down your business. So business lawyers, obviously knowing what the law says about winding down, they can help you walk through that process and make sure that you're providing the right notices to any creditors of the business, and that the assets are appropriately identified and liquidated, and that any liquidation proceeds are applied appropriately, such that the owners of the now closed business aren't going to be exposed to some sort of personal liability after the business has actually been closed. So kind of holding your hand and walking the owners of the business through that process. So lots of information, lots of things that business lawyers can do from the very infancy of a business all the way through a sale or a closure of a business. I feel like it's a lot of information that a lot of folks don't necessarily know that business lawyers can do. And so I always take every opportunity to try to explain that. So I really appreciate you all attending. And if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. I'll be on for about 5 more minutes if you have any questions about anything that I've gone over. Otherwise, I really appreciate your time. Okay, so one question that we got is, do you offer a package to businesses starting up to get everything set up for them legally? Yes, we do offer packages to startup businesses, depending on the type of structure, obviously, that you choose to adopt, whether it be an LLC, limited partnership, or a statutory closed corporation. Generally, we have a package where we will have the initial consult with you, where we meet for about an hour to kind of go over all these different types of structures, give you that information, and then select the type of structure that you want. Then we will file the business for you with the Secretary of State, and then order a corporate book, which in your articles of incorporation or articles of organization will go into. It will also have certificates that show who the owners are. It's an actual physical document that looks like a certificate, and which it will show you who the shareholders are, the LLC members are, and it will also include your organizational meeting. So once the corporate book comes in, we will have a second meeting with you in which we will execute or sign everything in the corporate book. And if it's a corporation, then we'll execute your bylaws and go over those with you. And if it's an LLC, of course, we'll go over your operating agreement in detail and kind of explain what's in there and make any changes or edits that you see fit. So yes, we do have some packages depending on what type of structure that you want. Another question is, where are you located? We are located in Spartanburg, South Carolina, though we do work with and represent businesses across the entirety of the state of South Carolina. And we do not currently represent anyone outside of the state of South Carolina, though. One clarification that I do like to make is, in litigation cases, we do have the ability to work with lawyers of other states and actually work underneath their license. So a lot of clients who have been long-term clients of ours, say we're providing just some general counseling services, find that they need to sue somebody in a different state, and they still want to work with us and they still want us to work on the case. Then we will locate a lawyer in the state in which the lawsuit needs to be filed or is currently pending. And we will then work with that lawyer, and I or another attorney in the firm will actually file and work underneath the license of that other attorney in that state. So for example, if it's North Carolina, I will work underneath the license of that North Carolina attorney, and that does permit me to make appearances in court on behalf of my client in the state of North Carolina just for that one case. So we do have some limited ability in that situation. Another question is, does a business attorney handle collections? Yes, we do. Of course, kind of like I referred to, we draft contracts, we prepare contracts and review contracts, all in the hopes that you don't ever need to actually enforce that contract. But in the event that you find yourself needing to file a lawsuit to enforce that contract, or you're defending a lawsuit in which someone is accusing you of breaching a contract, we can handle that. And a lot of those types of contract or breach of contract cases end up being collection type cases. When I say collections, though, I'm usually referring to a breach of some sort of service contract or maybe a purchase of goods type contract, in which a debt is owed to a business or a business owner, and they're trying to get paid on whatever that is. Some other types of collections that you may think of are if a business already has a judgment against another business and they need to then go to the next phase of collection, which is called supplemental proceedings. We work with a lot of business owners in collecting on a judgment and representing them in the supplemental proceedings process. One thing that we generally also recommend when someone comes to us and say, someone owes me a lot of money and I want to sue them, one of the things that we will do kind of at the outset is to try to do some sort of asset search, see if this business or this individual has property, has assets on which we could collect or liquidate in order to be able to collect. Because, we want to do somewhat of a cost benefit analysis with our client. We want to make sure that there's something there to collect on before we spend, a ton of money or time in chasing down a collection just to turn out that there might not be anything. But judgments are good for 10 years. and you can start this process at any point in time in that 10 years. So doing a kind of your research at the outset and kind of going over all that information, yes, we definitely help folks with that as well. Okay, well, I got a lot of great questions, and I really appreciate everyone attending today. And this information webinar will also be posted on our YouTube page in case you missed anything and you had some additional questions. So also my email should be available through our website. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to us anytime. Thanks.